Just over 8 days to go of the summer transfer window, and whilst it could certainly be argued that West Ham have done good business up until this point and sit in quite a healthy position as we head towards the closing stages, the panicky part of the transfer window, we've become a little bit stuck. It's been over a week now since we signed Wan-Bissaka, and at that point it was widely reported that West Ham were going to have to adopt a sell before you buy policy and a case of one out, one in if we wish to have a full squad for the upcoming Premier League season. And it made sense, but since then we've not sold anybody. We've not even been able to give anybody away. And I think we've become a little bit stuck. Tim Steidten's become a little bit stuck because we're trying to get players in. And it's all very well doing the negotiating and the persuading, but we can't sign on the dotted line and get them over to West Ham until we get players out. And I think it's going to give some of the buying clubs an advantage as we head into the last week of the transfer window. Now, this video is going to be a bit of a bitty one. There's a few topics to get through, a few players to discuss because I've been absent for a couple of days, but I'm back now, so I've got a bit of catching up to do. So hopefully you stick with me and get involved in the comments as well. But if you're new around here, please do subscribe. Also drop a like on the video as well by clicking thumbs up. Both things are completely free and helps out this video. Now, Solar is a fantastic case in point. So the reports are we've done a deal with PSG. It's a loan with an obligation to buy. That Solar wants to come to West Ham. We want the player. The only hurdle is that there's no space for him. Now, technically, we can still sign him. It would just mean that somebody misses out in terms of the squad registration on the assumption nobody leaves. Now, the reports are that we'd ideally like to move on Thomas Souček or James Ward-Prowse, and Solar would be that replacement. And I'm sure that's what Tim Steidten would want in an ideal world. However, as we all know, we don't live in one of those. We do not live in an ideal world. So something might have to give here. It might be a case of that Irving is the one that goes and Solar just comes in and replaces him in terms of the squad. Because financially, it's a low commitment, the Solar one. As it's a loan with an obligation, the transfer fees wouldn't be due to start until next summer. So in terms of this season's budget, it's got a low impact on it. Certainly there would be a loan fee applicable as well as taking his wages on. But in regards to the hefty parts of the transfer, that's for next summer. So I don't see this one being held up financially, it's just squad space. Now, like I said, technically there's nothing stopping us signing him anyway. However, unless it's a big opportunity to get someone in and it's a bit of a rare situation, maybe we've got other clubs interested, I think the club are doing the right thing, being patient on this one and try and get somebody off the books. Because I wouldn't want to become a Chelsea where we just have loads of first team players and we're just not registering them but still paying them a lot of money. Now, Chelsea can maybe afford to do that and to become that club. I'm just not sure that we can. We have to be careful with our money, and because we have been careful with our money to some extent, I do think not being careful is starting to cause us problems. We'll get onto that one, but it's allowed the spend up that we've had this summer. We spent about 150 million, brought in 8 new players so far, and that's because how we've treated the previous windows up until this date. The last thing I'd like to see us do is start having players who are over the age of 21 playing under 21s football. It's no good for them, it's no good for West Ham, and it's a situation I'd like to avoid as much as possible. Hence why there has to be a little bit of pressure on West Ham and Tim Steidten to start moving players on. They did well in January to get Benrahma, Fornals and Kerr out the club. Yes, we should have brought players in, yes, but in terms of outgoings, I think the correct decision was made on all those 3 players. It's time to do it again now. We've got a week now to get some of these players shifted off the books because we've come to a bit of a standstill. We've identified Solar, we want him, we just cannot get him in. And the only thing holding this deal up is no club coming in for one of the players that we currently have. And this is where it plays into the buying club's advantage as we get closer to that deadline, I strongly believe. Because usually when it comes to selling players, one of the reasons clubs are reluctant is because of the lack of time to sign a replacement. So let's just say Solar did not exist, and come the 28th, 29th of August, a club comes in for Souček or Ward-Prowse and the offer is fair, I don't know, 14 million for Souček, so it's not a big wow, bite their hands up. It's not an insult either. 15 million for Souček. Naturally, you're going, well, hang on a minute, that's quite tempting. Maybe we could take that, but we don't have long left on the clock to get a replacement in. And that can cause problems. That can cause deals to fall through just because the selling club cannot get a replacement in. But we have one lined up, and buying clubs will know this. So that number one excuse of you're going to have to pay a bit more than usual because you're putting us under pressure, that's not applicable to West Ham. And I just think the closer we get to the deadline, for any club that wants Thomas Souček or James Ward-Prowse, they may just have that power of negotiation, because we will become, maybe not desperate, actually, we may become desperate to sell one of those. It all depends on what happens between now and then. There's still a week until we're at that final point of the transfer window. I'm just getting a little bit concerned, if you like, that we're going to have to maybe move on a player we perhaps don't want to, or for cheaper than we want to. And Souček and Ward-Prowse are going to have more suitors than some of the other players that we're trying to move on for various different reasons. There's a lot of talk that we'll sell one of them. I still would not be surprised that they're both still here on 31st of August. The window shuts next Friday, by the way. 30th of August it closes, because the 31st is a weekend. It has to close on a weekday. So it was a case of, would we go Monday or would we go Friday? And they're doing it in line with the other European countries. They haven't always done that. But Friday, 11 PM next week is when the window closes. So on the 31st of August, the window's actually closed. So I wouldn't be surprised if come that Saturday when we play Manchester City, that James Ward-Prowse and Thomas Souček are part of the squad. For me, it's just a case of, will Solar be part of the squad as well as those two? Because that would be a beefy midfield. Alvarez would be back at that point as well. It may be Andy Irving that makes way in order for us to sign Solar, because there's only so long we can delay this transfer before PSG or Solar become a little bit impatient and say, well, you either sign him or walk away. We'll wait and see. But I believe that we've got Solar lined up. It's just a case of trying to shift somebody before we can bring somebody else in. Now, we've got a lot of other players to get through. Before we do that, I just want to point in the direction of Surfshark, this video's sponsor. Why are we sponsored by Surfshark? Because myself and Gonzo have been using Surfshark for multiple years. They are a VPN provider which helps you stay safe online and keeps your personal details private. Not just your home Wi-Fi, but whether you're out and about, if you're on a train and you connect to the public Wi-Fi on the train, or you're in a coffee shop, or you're hot desking as it's becoming more and more popular, the Surfshark VPN helps keep you safe even when you're connected to those networks. Now, a couple of my favourite things about Surfshark: you only need one account for multiple devices. I've signed up once and I've got it on my computer, I've got it on my phone, and I've got it on my tablet as well. You do not need to pay 3 times, you pay once, and it covers unlimited devices. Plus, you get a money back guarantee as well if you use the Hammers Chat offer. Now, the link's in the description below. And if you join up using that link or use the code Hammers Chat with no spaces, you will get 4 months free. If you're not happy with it, within 30 days, if you're not happy, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. Well, there is a question. They'll say, why are you cancelling? So they can get the feedback. But apart from that, you can get your money back, as simple as that. But my best feature, the favourite feature for me, is you can change your geolocation. So if you are abroad and you wish to access YouTube back in the UK, you can change your location to say that you're back in the United Kingdom. Then you can access what that YouTube is showing. So if I was to go to Spain next week and I wanted to catch up with the Premier League highlights on the Sky Sports YouTube channel, I change my location to the UK and then I can access the Premier League highlights on the Sky Sports channel. As simple as that. So stay safe online, use Surfshark, links in the description below. Like I said, myself and Gonzo have been using it for multiple years between us as well, and we've never had an issue, hence why we wanted to work with Surfshark. Now, moving on, speaking of abroad, we've signed somebody, Kante. Well, we wanted Kante, just not this Kante, from Paris FC, 18-year-old midfielder. Never heard of him. We've signed him and we've loaned him back for the season. So one to keep an eye on over the next 10-12 months. Obviously, it's somebody that Tim Steidten feels has got big potential and could make it. If we ever see him in a West Ham shirt in the first team, that is a huge success. But I don't mind punts like this. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't work, usually we can sell him and get our money back, just like we're doing with Luis Diao. who he signed a few years ago now. He's played in the under-21s, Brazilian centre-back. He's now 22 years old. So he's became a bit of a small problem because he can still play in the under-21s this season, but if we were to use him in the first team, we'd have to register him in the Premier League squad. He's now too old to be classed as a youngster. So as a result of that and the uncertainty of him making it at West Ham, when I've seen him play, I've not been overly impressed by him. He looks big, he is big, but in terms, when I watched under-21s play, I'm looking for somebody that looks head and shoulders above his peers. Usually there are a few. He's never really been that player for me, so I'm not surprised to see him leaving. He's heading back to Brazil. Corinthians are the favourites to sign him, and the fee is believed to be around about 4 million. So we're not giving him away, we are getting back quite a decent fee, I think, for somebody who's never played first team football at West Ham. But this is why I don't mind these punts like Kante. We took Louisiana over, we thought he was going to make it, he'd go on and become a player for West Ham. It hasn't worked out, and we're selling him back to Corinthians and getting our money back. I like these deals. Little risk, potentially high reward. I like it. Now, in terms of Kurt Zouma, the club are maybe going to have to make a decision here because he's still in Dubai. We're still happy to let him go for free. We don't want any money for him. Now, obviously, he had agreed a deal with Shabab Al Ahly, but his medical showed up more concerns with his knees, so they haven't gone ahead with the transfer, but he's still over there. And as the closer we get to the window, this is where it's crunch time for West Ham, really. I mean, it's crunch time for Kurt Zouma's knees, but it's crunch time for West Ham as well. I'd imagine there will be a club over there willing to take him, but they're just not going to be keen on giving him the wages that we're currently giving him, which is 125 grand a week. It might be a case of West Ham are going to have to subsidise those wages for the next year, because obviously he's got 1 year left on his West Ham contract. So not only are we going to have to give him away, there's a good chance we're going to have to fund a part of his contract to get him signed for another club. But the interesting thing would be is if no club take him. If come the end of the transfer window he hasn't got a new club, there's a decision at West Ham, which is, well, do we integrate him back into the first team? Because we will be paying him 125 grand a week regardless. And as I said at the very start of the video, I'm not sure we can afford to be paying anybody to sit in under 21s and do nothing all season. That's the case we're going to have with Zouma. So either we bring him back and hope that he's able to knuckle down and play a part of Lopetegui's season, or he goes to the reserves to rot and we pay him 125 grand. I hope it doesn't come to that. I am hoping that he gets a club, whether it be in Saudi, whether it be in Dubai. Even if West Ham have to contribute financially to that, I'm not too bothered, because it avoids the worst case scenario, and I think that would be Kurt Zouma returning and we've got a decision to make. Lopetegui's already stripped him of the captaincy. The last thing we need is a player in and around the first team that we don't want there. So I'm hoping that he gets a new club ASAP for West Ham, for Lopetegui, but also for Kurt Zouma as well. He deserves better. Now, when I say worst case scenario, I'm not saying that would happen, just saying it's a possible scenario. It could be that he comes back, Lopetegui brings him back into the fold, and he actually contributes positively to this season. I just feel like that's possibly not going to happen. I don't want this to turn ugly. He's been a really good player for West Ham. I think he's been fantastic for us. And obviously what happened with the cap wasn't good, and that's the blemish on his CV at West Ham. But outside of that, I think he's been, a fantastic player for us. I've got nothing bad to say about him. I just hope he gets this move. It's the best thing for all parties concerned. Moving on to more positive news. So Lewis Orford signing a new 5-year deal. I think it was 5 years. I should probably have looked that up, to be honest. I just seen he signed a new contract and assumed it was a 5-year deal. Let's get him out on loan now. Fantastic news. Now let's get him out on loan. The under-21s have been, I was really saying picked apart. Not really. The club have decided to start loaning these players out. Callum Marshall's gone. Patrick Kelly's gone. Good. George Earthy's gone. Good. Kadua's gone / on the move. Good. Let's get Orford out as well. I think what we're going to have to accept as fans is perhaps the under-21s aren't really going to be much to write home about this season. But when the players are out on loan, it's not the end of the world. It would be a problem if we didn't have any players out on loan and they were really bad, that would be an issue. But when we're going to loan out the core of the team, I think you can expect maybe a dip in performances and results. However, for Lewis Orford, I'd like to see him go out even to League 2. I think I'd maybe like to see him drop down to that League 2 level. He's got time on his side. Orford, he's just turned 18. He's got plenty time. Go somewhere he's going to play week in, week out. Whether that's League 2 or League 1. I'm not sure there's a great deal of difference personally in terms of the experience for him. But to get him playing weekly up against really experienced players at that level, completely different environment, I think it would do him the world of good. Another player that could be going out on loan is Freddie Potts. Wycombe are back in for him, as are Portsmouth. I don't want him to go to Wycombe. This is going to sound really harsh. The difference with Freddie Potts and Lewis Orford is Potts is a couple of years older than him, so he's ahead of his development, and I think he is. But I think you've got to treat him like that as well. We know he can do it in League 1. We've seen it last season. He won Player of the Year twice. He got the Players' Player of the Year and the Supporters' Player of the Year. So he smashed it at Wycombe. And this is nothing against Wycombe. I think we've got a good relationship with them. If anything, put Lewis Orford there. They want Potts because they want a central midfielder. See if Orford fancies going to Wycombe. But for Potts, I'd be more inclined to put him with Portsmouth, a higher level, and see if he can cut it in there. He's had the experience of playing with senior players, grown men. It's now a case of what's your ability like, where are you at, and if you can do it, we know he can do it in League 1. We're not going to learn anything putting him there, it would just be experience, but in the Championship we would learn. Now obviously that comes with a risk in the sense that he's obviously less likely to play regular football, but I think he's good enough. I do think he's good enough, and if he's not good enough to play weekly in the Championship, then is he good enough for West Ham? I don't know. So I hope that Potts gets his move. And, well, I'd like him to stick around the first team, truth be told. But minutes are going to be hard for him. If we have European football, certainly there's an opportunity there to rotate and to rest. But without that, it's just difficult. We've got the Carabao Cup against Bournemouth. He could get a game there. But even if he impresses a lot, it's hard to see him be included too often this season. So I think him going out on loan is the best thing for him. Although there would be a twinge of disappointment for me to have no academy players in and around the first team this season. It's something I was hoping would change under Lopetegui. No, it appears to be the answer. Edson Alvarez, lastly. Actually, I'm not going to discuss that because I've just realised I've been speaking for nearly 18 minutes. So I'll keep my Edson Alvarez thoughts, but basically I wouldn't sell him because we're getting towards the end of the transfer window. Every player has a price. That is still relevant, right? If somebody offered 100 million for Alvarez, yes, bite your hand off. 80 million, yes, take it. Right. So yes, I'd still sell him. However, barring a ridiculous offer like that, I wouldn't, because against Aston Villa I think we got an indication that we need Edson Alvarez back, and second of all, his value, what it is today, it's not going to decrease. All he has to do is have a good season and it will only go in one direction, and I don't expect Alvarez to be here in 2-3 years time. He's been chirping about a move away from West Ham the minute he signed. It's clear his ambitions are greater than what West Ham can offer him, and I don't have an issue with that. But it's on our terms. He leaves when we want him to leave, and he leaves for the fee that we want for him. I just don't think either of those things are applicable right now. So I'd like to see Alvarez remain. Maybe next summer he goes. We'll wait and see. But for now, sorry I wasn't going to talk about it. There you go. But that's a condensed version of my thoughts on the Edson Alvarez rumour. That's it. Get involved in the comments below about anything transfer rumour-wise relating to West Ham. I'll catch up with you in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it and subscribe to Hammers Chat. We did the Crystal Palace preview. I did that with Gonzo earlier. That'll be on the screen in a few seconds. And tomorrow I'll be catching up with a Crystal Palace fan, possibly my favourite Crystal Palace fan. Certainly in regards to opinions, it's my favourite Crystal Palace fan. And myself and Frankie should be recording a Fantasy League video for those of you who are interested, as well as our weekly podcast. So if you've got any questions for the Frankie podcast, it could be anything West Ham or Frankie, whatever. If you've got any questions for that podcast, leave them in the comments and I will put them to him tomorrow. But thank you very much for joining me. Much appreciate it. I'll catch up with you in a bit.